Hello everybody. We're back here with you with a new episode. Hi, Keith and Marcus. How are you guys doing?
Doing good here. Good to see you, Amos.
Yeah, I'm also doing better now. Last week I had to skip the show because I was not feeling that well. But as you can see, I'm back. And as you also can see, it is only 6.5 months ago until Christmas. And this is why I'm slowly growing my beard, for the festivities. And well, thank you all for coming here, for joining us to our show. Well, as usual, I would also like to know how's Amos doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right in Jersey. Everything seems to be opened up. People are partying. Half an hour ago, I was a little concerned because there was a big party outside the house. There was I guess, a birthday or something, and there were tons of people crowding there. I thought I'd have noise coming in, but they dispersed, so we're good.
Yeah, here in Germany also the incidents are also falling, but what the vaccination is concerned, we still have problems. I got still no appointment date, to get my first vaccination. And meanwhile, in other cities, the summer is slowly coming here to Germany, and people are partying in masses. And a lot of people behave here like the coronavirus is defeated. While if you only look over the channel, what goes on in the UK, originally they wanted to reopen, I think, in 1.5 week, but they also cannot do this, as it seems, because the Indian coronavirus variant is coming, is already there, and it is spreading heavily there, and the thing is not done yet.
They seem to get them all the variants.
Yeah. And it was quite funny. I had a delivery guy in a couple of days ago here, and I asked him if he already got vaccinated, and he said, "No." He said, "I'm scared. I'm one of those lucky guys, who get vaccinated and get all the stuff, all the illnesses and sicknesses you can imagine." And I said, okay, but I think it is no excuse. I can understand that you are worried maybe, but you have a 100% guarantee to get the coronavirus if you don't get the vaccination. And I hope you will rethink it.
I agree with you. The same thing bothers me. Take one for the team, right?
Yeah.
Because it could kill you. The vaccination could kill you, right? A chance in a million, or a chance in 1,000 of COVID killing you. It's 1,000 to 1 difference for one. The important thing is you're doing it for other people. You're doing it for other people, right?
You're saying it. You brought up an important line. Take one for the team, and this exactly brings us nearly to the first topic we have today. It is exactly to take one for the team, and those people who are denying to give one for the team. And there we are with the card for today. As I said, we are talking about the fun being a billionaire. Then Keith will continue to talk about his personal experiences, and Seattle leading the way. I'm curious what he has there. Amos will talk about the Carbon Club and in how far what the future of carbon would be. What I took from, right, Amos?
Correct. Yes, we'll
Yes.
go over that.
Yes, and then we come over to the real funny stuff. We are talking about Louis Gohmert, and he had a very exclusive idea in how to fight the climate change. We will come to this a little bit later. And as usually, we go out with the shortcuts, music and stuff. And guys, I hope you like it. So let's lead over to our first topic. Last week, we learned there was an article coming out from ProPublica, and it revealed how much or how less the Billionaires Club is paying in reality. And in my honest opinion, I thought the outcry would have been louder than it has been in the public so far, because I think this what we are seeing here, the numbers we are going to see here, is exactly what the society is today for a certain percentage of people, and they show that they are completely on solidarity, that they're showing no solidarity with their own people, with their own communities, and it is, as Keith said, it is about to take one for the team. And if we are looking at the first slide, please, where we can see the numbers, we have, it is absolutely fantastic. Warren Buffett, for example, the guy who was preaching for years to tax the rich, to let them pay more. He got a wealth growth of $24.3 billion and a total income reported of $125 million. And he only paid a tax of 23.7 million. This is a true tax rate of 0.1%. You can take out your calculators at home and just check what your taxes are, and then try to come to 0.1%, and then ask yourself, why am I paying so much? Or do the other question, why aren't they paying their fair share?
Marcus, I have an observation for you.
Yes.
My bank account, I have a bank account that actually pays that in interest, 0.01%.
Good example. Yeah, exactly. And you can imagine crazy numbers. Jeff Bezos, one of the favorite guys of mine, I think it is not a caricature if we consider him as Dr. Evil. He looks like him, and if you look at the numbers, he acts like him. Look at his wealth growth, 99 billion, and total income reported 4.22 billion. Total tax paid 973 million. This is 0.98%. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely fantastic. Michael Bloomberg, 1.30%. Elon Musk, the hero of many, at least he paid 3.27%. It's every number is absolutely ridiculous, and it shows how antisocial those people are. I can imagine they are looking at the amount they have to pay. They don't look at the percentages. They're looking at the amount they have to pay, and they think to themselves, just like Uncle Scrooge there in the corner, oh my God, I have to pay 300 million. No one is paying 300 million. Only nearly Michael Bloomberg and Elon Musk. They are sitting there and crying over the millions they are losing, and completely leave out of view the masses and masses of money they made, and they are not willing to pay their fair share. They will put up the argument, we are doing so much good, we are donate to so many stuff and to so many organizations, but the problem is, this is what they chose. This might be not what the society would need at this moment. Just imagine, everyone who has the free choice to donate gives his money to the animal shelter, and no one gives to the orphanages anymore. So everyone did a good work, but it didn't help society. This is why we need taxes. You might find them not correct. You might be against it. But in the end, you have to pay for it, because it's not someone else outside of you. You are part of this. The taxes you pay should come back to the community somehow, to the society, and they should not stick to the super rich, to the billionaires, just like it did for decades. I think the last time there was an overthrow, please correct me if I'm wrong, was it Theodore Roosevelt who went on with 90% taxes for the super rich, and the champagne was flowing still in streams. You know, they are partying like crazy in those years. You know, I'm not sure if it was Roosevelt, but there was one president who heavily taxed the rich, you know, and they still were doing well, you know, more than well. And I don't have anything against millionaires and that they got the money. They can do with the money whatever they want. They can make sure that they that the next 3 generations can live in welfare, but there gotta be a cap. You know, because you owe this to the society, because the society made it possible for you to come to the top, right? You wouldn't be shit without the society who is buying your products, you know? So in my opinion, if you reach a certain level of wealth, then what's coming over it, what's coming more in, belongs to society. You may call me a communist or something like this, but I think
You're
this
a communist.
is okay. Get it? No problem. But I think it is logical thinking. You know, the other thing we can discuss about what is done with the money from the government gets. This is a completely different question. But first of all, we got to agree that it is necessary that everyone pays his fair share, right?
Right.
And there was another article in the New York Times. I don't want to go into the details because I'm not a financial expert. I only wanted to show you the slides about it. But what is interesting, you know, they're not shying away from, for example, Jeff Bezos. He was claiming a $4,000 tax credit for his children in 2011. I would be ashamed to do this, right? Warren Buffett, who was called for tougher tax rules for the wealthy, paid under 24 million in taxes between 2014 and 2018, combined 24 millions. It's ridiculous. It's a fucking joke. And this is why we called our show No Joke. You know, Michael Bloomberg, 70 billion in income tax, despite reporting 1.9 billion in net income. You know, after claiming deductions, charitable donations, as I said, and foreign tax offsets. And talking about the donations, there's one very interesting thingy about, for example, Richard Branson from Virgin, right? Who also belongs to the club. He's not mentioned in the card, but he also belongs to them. Well, he is donating a swan rescue center in England. You know, this is honorable, of course, you know, and the Swans love him for doing that. But, you know, taxes have to be paid. And not ridiculous amounts of taxes. Taxes have to be paid in full, you know. And it was made too easy for them in the past decades to build loopholes, you know, to avoid taxes, to go to tax oases, you know. Germany is also one tax oasis. I don't know if you knew this, for Americans. We allow also certain tax models for Americans to avoid the taxes at home. And we gotta stop this. We gotta stop this globally. And we are seeing first attempts, half-hearted attempts, to be honest, you know, to start with taxes for multinational operating companies. You know, that they at least pay a certain amount, a minimum amount, right? And it already took too long to come to this conclusion, in my opinion. And well, we can see, we can look at where the money goes, you know, and there you have enterprises coming up like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and stuff. Branson also, and they all have the idea that they should be the guys who conquer space.
Yeah.
But where does the money come from? You know, This is a good portion of your tax money they're blowing into space.
So,
Well,
Marcus,
actually, what they're doing is they're privatizing space.
Yes, exactly.
for good
And
reason.
they can privatize because they avoid taxes, right? At least to a certain portion of the money.
Well, you privatize, you reduce the amount of taxes you collect. You're reducing
Exactly,
the power of government.
Exactly.
You're giving it to corporations.
So, Marcus,
You're taking over the government. You're taking over the power. We are seeing this already with Amazon and for example, and on the social media part with Facebook. They don't give a fuck what the governments say.
But you have to look at it. You have to look at it in a context wider than you're drawing. So and this may sound completely outlandish, but this is how wealthy people think. And this comes from conversations I've had with people, and basically they see what we see. They see the decline of the environment. They see the climate change, climate crisis. They are not naive. They can read the writing on the wall. They see that the world is going to shit, and they may pretend that this is not occupying them, but of course it is. They have their families, they have their futures, and so when they're thinking of it, they're now in a stage where they're collecting as much wealth as they can in order to survive the downfall. That they see as inevitable. And the space, what you mentioned as this space race that they're doing. We're looking at Elon Musk and Bezos and these guys. They consider colonizing. They even discuss that, moving a population to space in order to survive. And so they're of course that's going to be the affluent community that's going to be able to buy their tickets to
send your applications today, right?
Yeah,
we won't be in this. We won't be in this spaceship. We won't be in this, Amos.
Of course not, and you can't imagine spaceships that would encompass the entire population of Earth. So obviously, this is meant as a lifeguard, what do you call it? Lifesaver for the rich, and so it's not all.
It's expression of scientific ignorance as well, because it's also impossible. But that's another subject. I want to point out a couple things about this, Marcus. I totally agree with you. The taxes need to be paid, and one thing about it is charity can't replace it.
Yes.
You can't have a billionaire just saying, "Oh, how about instead of paying $1 billion in taxes, I just build you a library, a museum, build a bridge." What I want to do is my point, what I'm getting to, because these people, I've talked to a few of them. I've worked for one of them. They're ordinary people. The media builds them up as genius, insightful people or whatever. No, they're ordinary people, and that's one reason you get the craziness, because we're all a little bit crazy, So they're like us from that point of view. They have a lot more money, but it's a mistake to give them more than that, something they don't have.
Absolutely right. And look how celebrated Elon Musk was all over the years, right?
Well,
it was, and I'm asking. Okay, he made his way, of course, but in the end, sorry, but in the end, when it comes to taxes, he's just another scoundrel like the others.
He's an expert at public relations.
Yes, yeah. But this shouldn't help those people to get away. And of course, I'm not naive. I know that those people have their puppets, at the points where it counts, at the offices where it counts, and they won't move. They don't make a move without being commanded to move. We know this. This is why we have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I don't know if it would change if the point comes where people are so fed up that it really comes to revolution. I doubt this would come from America, because there's still
People
the
here are too
craziness
well
of
fed.
the American dream in it. Maybe, that one day when I made it, I don't want to pay those many taxes. Also, the crazy thought about it, I don't know, but one thing is clear. And there comes Warren Buffett again into the game. He said for a decade ago already, I think he said that there's a war going on, and it's a war between the rich and the poor, and my class is going to win it. And what we saw today is they have a clear advantage, at least if they're not close to win this war. All right. And the crazy thing is, how did the government react to this? And I'd like to show you a clip. It's slide 14, Amos. What's the reaction of the official reaction to the numbers?
Any unauthorized disclosure of confidential government information by a person with access is illegal, and we take this very seriously.
The U.S. Treasury Department Tuesday called on law enforcement to investigate the disclosure of tax records cited in a media report that showed that some of America's richest people paid little to no income taxes. U.S. media outlet ProPublica said it obtained a vast trove of Internal Revenue Service data on the tax returns of thousands of the nation's wealthiest people. The data indicated that billionaires including Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and Tesla founder Elon Musk paid no federal income taxes during some years. The IRS is part of the Treasury Department, and its many tax records are considered confidential documents. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden has sought tax increases on the wealthy to help fund proposed spending on infrastructure and social programs, including raising the top tax rate to 39.6% from the current 37%, and nearly doubling the capital gains tax rate to 39.6% for Americans earning $1 million annually or more. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said it's a matter of fairness.
We know that there is more to be done to ensure that corporations, individuals who are at the highest income are paying more of their fair share.
Treasury Department spokeswoman Lily Adams said in an emailed statement that the disclosure of tax records has been referred to the FBI, federal prosecutors, and 2 internal Treasury Department watchdogs, all of whom have independent authority to investigate. ProPublica described the records as confidential and did not disclose how it obtained them.
Well, I'm pretty sure there goes much more effort into finding out who leaked the information than to really fight avoiding taxes. What do you guys think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, divert it,
Right?
it.
Yeah. And it is illegal, as we just learned, to horrify the wealthy. Yeah, because they need the money. And there we are closing the circle again, The rocket men, Bezos, Musk, and Branson scramble for space supremacy. And, well, as I said, a good portion of the money they are taking for their space dreams is coming from your taxes, guys. Let's be clear about it. And I know that Keith also has a personal relationship to this topic. Please tell us more about it.
Oh, yeah. I noticed somewhere in the deck you have a slide about Blue Origin. And
yes,
professionally, I'm an unemployed engineer. And so at the end of the month, our reporting requirements will go back into effect. And I will have to report at least 3 places I've applied to every week to continue getting my $300 a month or whatever it is now. I don't even know. And anyway, so I'm a qualified engineer. I have the degrees, the experience. I'm looking for a job. So I get online, I go to Blue Origin's site, I apply, and then I never hear from them. And that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And but the important thing is I've done what I'm supposed to do as one of the three requirements. And of course, if I see interesting jobs, I'm going to do more than 3 because, of course, I want a job. But just to let you know, I'm in the area. I also live very close to where Amazon's headquarters are. So I know the buildings they've built and the skyscrapers. They're beautiful. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievably beautiful, development. And we'll be covering a little of that when we get to my stuff.
All right. It's your turn.
Oh, it is. Okay. Well, let me catch up on the slide deck here. And let's go to the first one. And I'll wait till, is that up? Okay. Yeah, so Seattle had a distinction this week. We were the first city to reach herd immunity. And so that's great. What do I say about it here? Let me adjust my slide. Yeah. So San Francisco came close. They actually have more residents with 1 dose, but that doesn't count. That's like coming up the finish line and not crossing it. You got to have the 2 doses going on to win this contest. So Seattle won this contest. We are the first city in the country to reach herd immunity. Of course, that this is only, you and I both know there's more to it, but it is a distinction. And my presentation this week is video heavy. We're going to play a video. It's a little bit long, but it's all important to play because it's relating to everything we're talking about today, not just COVID. And it's going to be Jenny Durkin. And this video is interesting because I made this one myself. We have a community feed that I've been checking to watch, like the Seattle City Council, Kashama Sawant talking and so on. And so on the feed, there was a, video, and I rewound it, and I actually downloaded it, recorded it to my computer, then uploaded to my YouTube channel to put it here so we can play it. So this is just, it's a very good speech, and it's worth listening to all the way through. I'm over apologizing for all the videos I'm having. Let's just play it.
It has been so hard these last 14 months. I don't know a single family, a single business, or a single worker that didn't have a tough time. And back in February, I gave my last State of the City address, and I focused on those big challenges that I thought we had to get through this year in order to start rebuilding and recovering. And just to go back in time a little bit, in February, the Seattle Fire Department had only vaccinated 4,400 people. 4,400 people. We have changed that. Our city leads the nation, maybe tied with San Francisco, on getting to community immunity. We delivered our 100,000 dose at Lumen Field. And every time we asked the people of the city to stand up and do the hard thing, they've done it. We are now the city with the lowest incidence of disease, hospitalizations, and deaths. And that happened because of the hard work that teams across the city did to pivot overnight to help small businesses, to be one of the first in the nation with an eviction moratorium, to really focus on how do we get arts and culture supported and small businesses and workers. And we did it all with no roadmap. And every time we asked people to do the hard thing, they did. And it was a hard, hard year. And today we're here to talk about small businesses apart, that part of our package. I really want to thank Council Members Mosqueda and Gonzalez, who with me sponsored the rollout of this and are still very strong leaders on this, as well as the other council members who we came together because we knew how important it was for the city to be on the same page. For us to be really focused on the values that not just I ran on and I talked about in my State of the City, but that we know are the values of Seattle. And today we're talking about historical investments that we're making in small business recovery. We know that the impacts of this pandemic didn't hit people equally. We saw economic disparities in the city before the pandemic, and they were really laid bare. Too many small businesses were forced to close. Our communities of color were particularly hard hit, both with the health consequences of COVID and with the economic consequences. and we were one of the first in the country to go through it. But we invested over $10 million in our Small Business Stabilization Fund to help those nearly 1,500 businesses through. We wanted to be able to do more, but we've heard from so many businesses how that helped them at the moment that they got that. And we've piloted new programs listening to what will help people get through, whether it's closing streets so that we can have a patio, whether it's making sure there's pickup zones in front of restaurants, whether it's open streets for health and walks. We really are trying to listen. And today on the American Rescue Plan, I want to talk about the $23 million that we as a city are going to devote for community recovery. And that's going to include apprenticeships and retraining, downtown and neighborhood revitalization, stabilization grants, small business grants, and more. And we really also are going to continue to prioritize direct financial assistance to those people that need it the most and have not yet had the ability to start recovering. We saw through the pandemic how much those grocery vouchers meant or the rent relief meant. Having that direct assistance is critical for us to continue. We know that our small businesses are the heart of Seattle. They employ about 5 Amazons worth, or they did before the pandemic. And so many business owners I know, they would cut their own paycheck first. They dipped into their savings to keep the doors opening and to pay their employees. Every one of them has been hit. And we know to recover as a city, we have to make sure our small businesses can recover. So you're going to be hearing from some great individuals today who are going to talk to you about the challenges they have had, but how we have hope now on the horizon. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Goodman of the SOTA BIA, who will address you next. Thank you.
Yes, so I only included her part of the presentation in a much larger, segment. And I wanted to play the whole thing. It's here because she mentioned the COVID distinction. And that tape was actually, it's almost 2 weeks old, but it's because of the COVID, being first in the nation to reach herd immunity, it suddenly made it relevant again, and was, I think, a good clip to have for that purpose. But it went, if you noticed, it talked a lot about small business and was very business oriented. And this is the mayor that our socialist city, the city of Seattle socialist member is, they don't get along very well. And if you notice, she thanked a few people on the city council, but not her, who's Kashama Sawant. And we'll be seeing a tape of her in a moment. But one thing, and just looking at all this, watching the Seattle City Council meetings that I've been watching, reading the articles, is that Seattle got what I would call, and I think Chris Hedges calls it this, a liberal class, a very strong liberal class. And what the liberal class is, they think they're left. They're not really leftish. They're actually kind of conservative, neoliberal. And anyway, what it is, it's making everybody equal, and it's all about money, because they have it. So if we just make everything into economic and define, rights in terms of who has what, they're happy with it. So in a way, I mean, they love to claim they support the worker, but when push comes to shove, they believe in a hierarchy. And okay, this is all my opinion. But I get this impression, so Jenny Durkin, she's actually a good person, in my opinion, but she's reflecting a lot of a perspective, and the perspective is controlled by money. And one thing about getting into it and going through this whole process of watching all this stuff, I realized there's 2 aspects to the money. There's the part of collecting the taxes that Markus points out. Then there's the part of spending it. And, that's why I'm saying Jenny's a good person, because she's trying to, she's doing what she can. And you can argue about, some people are being left out, or some people are getting too much, whatever. But the point is, are you going to do nothing? Are you going to wait for perfection? And so I really became aware this week that there's 2 aspects to government. There's the part of actually doing the job and making making it good for, helping people out, then the other part is what kind of social arrangements do we have to collect the money? And you noticed in that report, there was a lot of mention that Seattle has such things as direct grants to people. I'd have no ideas, but this is not a city that's just throwing people under the bus, as some people may think. So let's go on to the next slide. And this, before we play it, this is going to be another tape. And this is Kshama Sawant, our socialist, the socialist member of the Seattle City Council talking. And it's interesting because I had made a tape of her from the community feed, and didn't play it. What we're going to see here is something I actually downloaded and posted up here. But what we have here is she is talking to some of her people, and she's preparing them. So when the Seattle City Council meeting meets and they have public input, and I watched all this, I watched the whole thing, she can have her people call in and say what she wants them to say. And I thought that's what was going on when I first saw it on Monday. And then yesterday, when I'm putting this all together, I go to her website and we're going to play it. And it's a bit long. I apologize for that. But I wanted to stop the tape where she takes a breath. And she literally talks for 4 minutes straight. But it is interesting talk. So let's hear it.
Take it.
Thank you, Adam. And sorry, I missed a little bit of this community meeting because I was on the phone with another council member. We have to absolutely make sure in public comment that our voice of renters, working people, union members, socialists, our collective voice is heard loud and clear. We demand that the city council vote today on all the renters' rights bills, including the resolution to extend the eviction moratorium to the end of this year. We demand no delays. If people might remember, they delayed the vote on our bill to give all renters facing eviction the right to a lawyer. They delayed that vote by 2 weeks in the hope that it would derail the movement. Now it did not. And we should take great pride in the fact that our movement was not derailed by that delay. But that is the purpose of any delay. So even if a council member, so-called progressive council member, presents the idea of a delay as a benign thing, as a good thing, they say things like, "Oh, this bill needs to be more more thoughtful. We need more technical expertise. We need it to be data-driven." They will use all these phrases which are truly empty. They don't mean anything. Or what they are disguising is the fact that they want to delay the vote so that whatever momentum ordinary people have built to come up to this point, that movement hopefully will dissipate, and that when the bill comes to a vote later on, that people will be scattered, demoralized. They won't know that the vote actually didn't happen today, but it is on a different day. They hope to confuse the movement and demoralize renters so that then they can introduce watering down loopholes. That is why we have to demand with one voice, no delays, no watering down, no loopholes for corporate landlords. We need strong renters' rights bills to pass today because the COVID pandemic and the economic crisis that ordinary people face, which is tens of thousands of people in Seattle and hundreds of thousands of people, if not over 1 million statewide, that the cost of all these crises has been put on the shoulders of renters and working people. And we simply don't accept that. And the renters' rights bills today are merely the first step of what we need. In fact, they are building towards what we want to win, which is a full-fledged renters' bill of rights. And as many of you know, our office has an unparalleled track record on winning renters' rights since 2016. We have won renters' rights that we were thought of as unwinnable. But the reason we won was because rather than rely on insider negotiations and private conversations with other elected officials, our office turns outward and we help to organize and mobilize ordinary people, in this case, renters, union members, socialists. I wanted to thank UAW 4121, the Seattle Education Association, and also the Martin Luther King County Labor Council as a whole who have all weighed in publicly and told the city council, you need to pass these bills without any watering down, without any loopholes. So it's important that we raise our voice today. This is a big renters' rights day, as Adam said, and we need to make sure that we not only win the ban against school year evictions of school kids and their educators and all the staff. We refuse for public school staff to be divided and conquered. We want all school staff to be covered. And we want to make sure that the eviction moratorium is extended to the end of this year at the very least. And we want to use today's momentum. We want to make sure we fight to win today. And we want to base on what we win today, the future of the renters' rights movement to win the full-fledged Renters' Bill of Rights, which includes the fight to win rent control without corporate loopholes and to win our overarching demand, which is to cancel COVID debt. The COVID debt should not be landing on the shoulders of renters, struggling homeowners, even struggling small landlords and small businesses. We need to unite and make sure that big business, big corporations, big banks, corporate developers, the real estate lobby pays for this crisis, not ordinary people.
Sorry about the length there.
No, she's right. She's absolutely right. And I like what she says. I don't know much about Kshama. You are much more into what she's doing. I only want to raise a question completely out of context.
Okay.
You know, my problem today is when I hear those very engaged and active people, you know, and fighting for stuff, I'm asking myself, okay, if this person gets into office, gets elected, what will happen to her? You know what I mean? You know, after the disappointing performance of AOC, Cory Bush, the Squad, and all of them, and I'm also afraid of the same when it comes to Nina Turner. You know, I know that she is leading big time in Ohio with about 50% or so. You know, but I'm so afraid, you know, that the moment she gets into office, she gets into power, that this changes.
It goes both ways, though. One thing, you weren't here for last week, but I had a slide, and we're actually going to be seeing this person in the next slide, and he's Big O, and he's on this on the morning update in Converge Media, which I'll explain. And he said Kshama's got a good ground game, and so you know she's personally, she knows how to use socialism as a brand. And so, you know, one thing about it is since she is claiming to be socialist, this is her financial disclosure statement. And I'm not going to actually give the numbers out because I'm just going to compare it to someone else's. And I don't want to give their numbers out either. And
It's
that's
okay.
me. That's me. Okay. And so, you know, Kshama, she makes very good income. Her income's actually higher than mine has ever been. And she, one thing about this whole thing is, if you're a socialist, are you a worker or have you ever been a worker? No, I mean, it's okay if you've never actually been a worker to be a socialist. Don't get me wrong here, but I do ask the question, you know, am I a worker? Is Kshama a worker? And how does this relate? And one thing, I'll get to the conclusion about me is that, yes, I am actually a worker. I am, you know, some people could say that I'm a member of the Seattle liberal class, but the fact is, if I look at my pay, I've always never been in an ownership position, ever. You know, I've always been an employee. I looked into it. I looked into the definitions. There's this thing called an exempt employee and a non-exempt employee. An exempt employee does not get paid a minimum wage. You know, they don't get paid overtime, but they are protected in other ways. It's a better deal to have, you know, and then you get salary. Regardless, either one, you're a worker, okay? And so I look at like one thing, you know, does Kshama have more net assets than I do? Because I said we're comparing here. Well, it's comparable, and I'm not going to say who has more or who has less. I do know the answer. I might later in the presentation, but I got to keep you on pins and needles about that. But the most insignificant thing is that, is like how she gets her money, and is being on a Seattle City Council a worker or what, I mean, so enough digression. Don't want to get too much into that, but she's got quite the game going. So, you ask a question, what happens to these people when they get in office? Well, different things can happen. And most of the time, I think you're fearing, the character assassination by the rich and powerful. And I agree, that's a great danger. But it can go the other way too. And I think in Seattle, we're kind of seeing that, we're seeing her organize and, is it okay to put your thumb on the scale to get your way? That's quite a philosophical thing there, isn't it? Do the ends justify the means? Yeah. And, but anyway, one thing about what you presented, and so far what I presented, is one thing I became aware of is just the perspective, and that, like who writes history? The winners write history. And anyway, I personally found that, that Kashama thing, she kind of gets my blood pressure going up here. But this next clip, and I apologize for so much video today, is very relaxing and nice. And before we started, I've got to tell you, Big O actually interviewed my son during the CHOP when we had the troubles last summer. And so there is a personal connection there. And during the CHOP or Chaz or whatever you want to call it that we had last year, I was getting all my news about what was going on downtown from Converge Media, because I knew Big O was there and he had his camera there, and he was injured too. He'll mention that in this clip. And again, I apologize for linking this one. So let's play it. So next slide and play.
Few things here. We got a lot of this came out on Friday. The first thing we want to play. It's about 4.5 minutes, but it's worth a watch. We aired this on Friday, and we got so much response from the community about it. This is a segment that we put together for Feel Good Friday when we sat down over there at the Mohi when Converge Media were basically in the Mohi as part of the Stand Up Seattle Democracy Project exhibit, which is going on right now.
America is a work in progress, and if we don't work, it won't progress. We need to understand, be very clear, that a democracy only works when we work. Everybody has a job to do. We're all stakeholders in this society. Our share is the vote, and we need to take our role as shareholders in this country very seriously.
I think this is an exhibit that really hits people at a personal level. What I learned from this exhibit, and I had to learn it, it wasn't intuitive to me, is that democracy is an unfinished project. Now is the time, I think, for us to remind ourselves that this is a project, we are a part of it, and its success ultimately depends on us. And it requires all of us to be a part of it. It has been, at best, a partial success, and it has a whole lot of failures that we can correct, that we must correct. And to me, the exhibit was revelatory of that.
My entire life, I've always believed that actions speak louder than words. You gotta walk the walk now. Now it's time to go walk, bro. You talked enough, now let's go walk it. What if the city stood up like this for itself? How much change could we affect here? How much change can we get done here if we come out and stand up like this for where we live?
Democracy is everything to me. I think that the United States has that open system. I mean, I've visited other countries. I've been outside of the United States, and I've seen it in other ways and forms. And still here in the United States, we have probably one of the best forms of democracy, though it's really hard for us sometimes, and particularly now.
Being in a museum and a repository of history, I think that it's important that people in Seattle realize that the Seattle protest is a chapter in a very long book here in Seattle and in the state of Washington for people standing up. And we're living this chapter right now. So we feel it. It's emotional. It's intense. You know, I'm still living with injuries from the protest.
You can tell me that you believe in me and that you're here for my life. Show me. Show me. What we did was we would march every single day to different parts of Seattle, go to council members' houses, talking to them, getting them to engage with the community that is most impacted by systematic racism.
Democracy is best when we challenge it. When it's under attack, it actually gets stronger. All the protests we saw this summer, all the protests that you read about in this exhibit that go back hundreds of years, they have made democracy live up to its promise. Imperfectly, of course, but there would be no progress without those challenges.
We can't let people forget what happened in Seattle. And I hope that it emboldens those out there younger than us to be prepared to write that next chapter. Because this story, this saga called democracy is continuously being written daily. And I hope that what our city went through last year will inspire people to pick up that pen and continue to write the next chapter of democracy in our city.
We can look at action from sitting down and writing a letter, talking to your neighbor, to being out on the street, with the protest sign, pushing back. So there are all sorts of ways to join this democracy and this effort.
Being able to have that many dialogues with that many council members on the city level, on the county level, it was like, yo, you really can do this. We really can do this. Like, this is a real thing that can happen. Somebody has to stand up for what we're living in. We have the power to change this city, and all it takes is somebody inspiring somebody else to do it. And this is who I gotta be. Whether I like it or not, this is who I have to be in order to ensure that my brothers grow up and die from natural causes, not the police.
We, the people, the citizen stakeholder of this city, this county, and this state, we have to reclaim our power. We have to reclaim our authority. And our chapter is long, our book is long. Our history for standing up is long. Our history of getting beat down is long. But you know what? In the fight for democracy is very much like that phoenix that continues to rise from the ashes. And if there's anything that I want people to take away is study this museum, study these movements, study things that occurred, study advances, and then see what happened when people took their foot off the gas.
Don't take the foot off the gas.
And keep that same energy.
Yeah.
I would tell people all the time, I'm celebrating 10 years of being married this year. I was going to slip in my wife somewhere, man. It was going to come in sometime. But one of the things I tell people is the energy
Okay. Though I watched the whole show, and that gentleman's very good. He's actually works with troubled youth and gets them resources and has all kinds of success stories. And anyway, yeah, that I'd love to see that museum exhibit. I think they charge admission, so I probably won't. I've worked in a museum. I know about museums. I think that's like I say, I think that's a good exhibit. I'd like to see it. But one thing I'm aware of is that exhibits, especially in museums, they only tell what you want to tell, and maybe half the story. And what was covered there, Big O, that's all important stuff. But it kind of leaves the money out of stuff if you make it all about, this group struggling against that group. And, that's kind of the democratic diversion of it, identity politics, get it, we'll be there for everybody and we won't have to do anything, and we'll put it all on you. But I don't want to get negative about that. I just want to point that out because I realize that, and I'll go ahead. I saw you wanted to say something there, Marcus.
Yes, I only wanted to say that we got some comments in chat about Kashama. And we got Barbara here. She says that Kashama works her ass off. We got a Dingo Ate My Baby. She's one of the only true socialists in elected office, not like pro-imperialism, fake Dem socialists like the Squad. Oz agrees to this. And, it seems that I got more information about her.
Yeah.
If I was not that into her. And it is good that such people are still around, and
Well, as long as my mild criticism doesn't put me on the spit and roast me, I'm happy. I'm glad they're talking. Good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And okay. So that's what I you know, putting it all together, you know, I'm just seeing the multiple layers behind everything. And one thing that got to me was, you know, since we really have to play the link on this Mohi here, right below the video, I have the link, and that goes straight to the Mohi website. And while I'm talking, we could play that, and you can see they have a great drone view of the museum. And I want to talk about where the museum is. You know, it's at the end of the Amazon development. And so, you know, it's a beautiful part of the city. It's all been redone. I think originally the building was a Coast Guard headquarters of some kind on Lake Union. The Museum of it had been located somewhere else near the University of Washington, moved. And I have not been to this new facility. Years ago, I was at the old one. And anyway, and I got to thinking, how much of the workers struggled do they really want to cover, or they just want to, you know, concentrate on, you know, current. Anyway, we had this, you know, Occupy zone in Seattle last year, and I'm aware that about 100 years ago there was another Seattle, you know, almost exactly 100 years ago, something else was going on in Seattle. And the only reason I know about this is when I was riding a bicycle through an I-90 pedestrian tunnel. And what it is Interstate 90 crosses Lake Washington and goes through about half a mile of tunnel. And on top of that tunnel, you can ride your bicycle and walk through, you know. And at one point they had allowed or encouraged, you know, high school students to paint these murals on the wall, and they're all painted over. But one of them, you know, I'm riding by, stopped, took a picture of it with my phone. You know, I had a brand new phone. They were just out, and let's go down a couple slides and show that. And we can skip the very next one. Amos, you there? Yeah. Oh, I can do it. We're kidding. No, go up one. Okay, this is the actual picture I took. It's been painted over since. And so then I went home and I looked this up. I found a great website that explains it, actually run by the University of Washington. And I'm really surprised that any, you know, government, anything establishment even covers this at all. And so, you know, I'd like to close my segment, the substantive part of it anyway, with this next clip on the next slide, and which is right off the website that I was saying was so great, put on the University of Washington. Yeah, down there. In fact, we could click that website and play the video there, or you can play it directly above either one. And it's just a piece of history that, much like the Tulsa thing that we covered last week, a lot of America doesn't know about. Like I say, I didn't know about it till I saw it on a mural. And, you know, I'm an adult. I went through a very good public school system, and I was never taught it. And it's an important part of history. So let's play it.
With the armistice, the war in Europe was over, but at home there was still no peace. In the winter of 1919, unemployment and a cut in wages caused the Seattle shipyard workers to strike. They called on all workers to do the same, to create a general strike, a massive stop work movement that would shut the city down. It was an unprecedented move, forbidden by every union charter and condemned by the American Federation of Labor. As the deadline for the strike drew near, panic sent people into the stores to hoard food and supplies. The fear that Seattle would erupt with riots induced some citizens to be deputized. The National Guard was mobilized, ready to quell the impending revolution. And across the country, editorials warned, the Bolshevik beast has come out into the open, and it is only a step from Seattle to Petrograd. From her office in the Seattle Union Record, the city's only labor-owned paper, Anna Louise Strong issued her own call to arms.
We are undertaking the most tremendous move ever made by labor in this country, a move that will lead no one knows where. We do not need hysteria. We do not need fear. We need the iron march of labor, for labor will feed the people, care for the babies and the sick, and preserve order. Not the withdrawal of labor power, but the power of the workers to manage will win this strike.
Her editorial, I mean, it seems to me sums up the spirit of that strike. They didn't know what they were doing, is the way I would interpret this, or where they were going. But it sounds ominous. It's got a kind of romantic touch to it, and it captivates people even now. And their eyes get big when they think about that editorial.
It was the first general strike in U.S. history. The wealthy, fearing revolution, fled to hotels in Portland. The middle class, fearing violence, stayed locked in their homes. Seattle functioned as a worker-run city, inspiring Strong to write,
If by revolution is meant violent, forcible taking of property, killing of men, surely none of our workers dreamed of such action. But if you mean that a great change is coming over the face of the earth, which will transform our methods of carrying out industry, then we do believe in such a great change, and our general strike was one step towards it.
After only 3 days, the strike collapsed. But for Anna Louise Strong, it was not the end, but the beginning.
Anna Louise Strong, by this editorial no one knows where, and the subsequent Seattle General Strike, made a name for herself as a radical calling for revolution. It struck fear in the hearts of a number of people, but it also aroused a great deal of hope among radical groups, both in this country and around the world. She therefore never lost this one incident from her own background, and she was proud of it. She would always say to herself in coming years, if she was ever tired or felt she was losing her drive, to be back to the Seattle General Strike days when that was really the most important thing that was going on in the world.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I was really amazed when I found this out, and you know, and I wonder 100 years from now, if there were people looking back at the troubles we have and they didn't know about them, I'd be happy. And the reason for that is because they're there, because, you know, we're looking at a future and we're not even sure that there'll be people looking back 100 years being able to say that, oh, wow, you know, look at what those people were doing.
I gotta admit that I don't even knew about it. You know, I'm hearing about this the first time, and it's it's impressing. It's also impressing the bondage between the Japanese and the American workers. You know, that this worked out for at least for a certain time, right?
Oh yeah, go to that website. You've got access to the deck. It's a very good website. Like I was amazed that, like I said, when I went there, I said, what, the university allows us to be there? This is communist.
Yeah.
Like you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So that's it. You know, the next slide just shows, you know, what I did not cover. And I'll so show that one. That's right after the video there. Yeah, Amos. Okay, it's up. Okay, and this is just 4 things here, you know. The first one is we got some environmental stuff going on. There's a pipeline in Minnesota, which is an area I visited when I was a child. I know the area, you know, from a very young man. And so, you know, a pipeline's being put in. You know, we didn't cover anything about that. Of course, we haven't got to Amos yet. We don't know what he has. But, you know, the Keystone pipeline was you know, canceled by Biden, but we've still got this Line 3 thing going on, and so no time to cover that. Skipping down
Keystone,
2 slides lower.
Keith, the Keystone pipeline, if I may, the Keystone pipeline actually collapsed of its own. They retracted. They decided they were no longer going to to do this project. So it wasn't really Biden. It may be the pressures all around it, but it wasn't the administration that made them take it off.
Yeah. So this, if you look at the top slide and the second from the bottom, they're kind of related, So you got on one hand, we got people who don't want the pipeline and people who do. And then we got Saudi Arabia and Russia warning that, we're going to kind of run out of oil, maybe, or something's going to happen here. No time to get into it, but, those two slides are related, as are the other two slides, because, as climate migrants cross borders seeking refuge, we're going to have to adapt our laws because, quite frankly, our attitudes about immigrants and refugees right now are not going to cut it for what's coming down the pike. We've got to grow up. So certainly more than the last man in the lowest slide there, where the Texas governor basically is, he's Trump wannabe, so. He goes out, he plays the fear card. And so
but he ain't got the money for it because the Biden
he's
administration.
allocated $1 billion in state funds.
I read today that that he has no budget anymore because Biden replanned the budget for social buildings, like they want to build a school here in Germany for the U.S. soldiers, etc. And all the budget is gone and planned for other things. This is what I heard. Maybe the governor. Maybe the governor will try to get the money from private donors or something. But this huge amount for bullshit, I don't think that anyone with an economic sense would do this.
No, he should not be let near money, and he should not be let near sharp objects. Or on the other hand, maybe he should be let near sharp objects, depending on how you look at it. Yeah. So that's it for me. So it's Amos' turn now.
If he was Japanese, I would suggest he would be let to near sharp objects. But
thank you, Keith. It was great and very interesting. As I said, very interesting about what happened in Seattle 100 years ago, and I definitely will look it up. All right, Amos, what do we have? Carbon news.
Oh, well, this is something that's been building, and we see the G7 summit kind of disappointing in regards to where it's taking us in terms of the global climate. There hasn't been much push. It seems like they're pretending that everything's hunky-dory, and they're kind of ignoring the whole thing. So it's important to get back into the discussion. Now, I wanted to bring up the work of a distinguished Nobel Prize winner, professor at Yale, by the name of William Nordhaus. And he's basically been proposing building on top of the idea of carbon tax. As you know, carbon tax has been proposed. It had some amounts of success. It seems that it is working in principle, but there's some problems with it.
I believe in carbon dividends. I do not believe in taxes, and I want the opportunity to make the distinction clear before we're finished today. But sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that goes into his idea of it. But basically his point is that since the Kyoto Accord started well, it had a somewhat of an impact initially, and then it petered out and it collapsed on itself. Following that, we have the Paris Agreement, and that as well is not working. Here's a graph of where we are in terms of carbon emissions, and there's basically a 2%, around 2% a year constant decline, which is not, as you can see, it hasn't really changed much. If you draw a tangent through it, it has not really, none of these agreements were making an effect, and in order to get to our goals in terms of carbon emissions, we would have to have a sharp decrease, not the constant that we have. So this is just a proof that all these accords, which he calls free riding accords, are not working. They're just voluntary the voluntary attempts to commit to certain things, and with regards to Paris, it's even worse, because we have a situation where these countries are just arbitrarily committing to do something by 2030, and there is really nothing to hold them down. So that's one of the problems. The other problem is the homogeneity of how this tax appears, and we see that when they analyze it, basically most of the tax is done through the motor aspect of gas consumption, so cars and so forth, not so much for other industries. And we see that its implementation across the board is very geographically is very different from place to place. So the emissions coverage is drawn here along the x-axis, and the carbon price tax is drawn on the y-axis, and you could see that the green dot in the middle is the European area, maybe New Zealand and so forth, which has relatively low carbon tax. That's in dollars per ton of a carbon CO2 emission, about $20 per ton. And it's about half deployed, half of an effect. So it doesn't cover 100%. It only covers 50%. And you could see how this thing varies from country to country, and in terms of what we really want is both high tax cost. High carbon to emission cost, as well as high coverage, as close as possible to 100% coverage. So that's really where we should be going. What we also see here is that there's another graph that he makes the point that the carbon taxes, the carbon taxes, and compared to the subsidies, are dwarfed by the subsidies. We have about $2 per ton that are collected, that are reduced from the profits by carbon prices, by carbon tax, while we have at the same time subsidies that go up to almost $10 a gallon. So it basically negates the entire tax and some. There's really
more than that, even more than that. It undermines it.
Five times as much subsidies as the of more subsidies as carbon taxes. So of course that has no effect whatsoever. And there's other aspects that also affect carbon emissions, and one of them is feed-in tariffs, where you have basically part of the paying for part of that in the usage. There's not much data about that. And the regulations, there's very little, as we know, with the voluntary free riding agreements, international agreements. There's really not that much going on right now, far from what it should be in order to curb the thing. Now, the carbon price to fossil subsidies ratio is improving, but it's nowhere near what it's still negative, so that needs to revert in order for it starting to make progress. Now, this gentleman, William Nordhaus, he's received a Nobel Prize for his work, and he's originally was talking about the taxes, and now he's talking about a more comprehensive idea of a tax club, or carbon club, or a carbon compact. And that the idea behind it is that you have, if you create a club that belonging to it would be not just taxation on the carbon emissions, but also benefits. In other words, like Keith said, dividends, where it would be offset from some other surplus somewhere else. Then we're starting to see like some sort of a pressure for countries to belong to that club and to participate, and that's a game that could be a game-changing model to do, and they would have, of course, to raise that tax. Countries that do not belong to this club would pay 3% more. In other words, the countries that belong to the club would pay 3% less for the fossil fuels in order to make this all work.
But it could be another big club, and we ain't in it.
In terms of what, another club?
Well, I only see one way to do it, and that is with carbon dividends, and anything else is playing games. And I made a video about carbon dividends. In fact, I just dropped it into the slideshow, and we could see it. It's slide number 24. I made it about a month ago, and what it is, it's a clip with explanatory clips, slides inside of it that was recorded. This is James Hansen, who was speaking at the Museum of something or other in Montreal or Toronto or someplace. Anyway, I think about 20 minutes, but if we just play just a few minutes of it, we get an idea, and maybe we might want to put this up separately on, if it's actually on my channel, but we could put it on Uphill Media if we wanted to. But well,
do you maybe have a short extract you have prepared?
It's well organized. It's actually, I was just learning how to do this, so it's rather complete. So I believe I announced what it is at the beginning, not me personally, but a slide with text. And, why doesn't Amos go on, and I will look at it and see if I can.
I have a different suggestion, because this, yeah. I'm very interested in it. I want to learn more about the dividends. What if you present this topic for next week?
Okay, sounds good.
So okay. we have a full overview about what's going on there with this topic.
Okay, and yeah. Like Amos, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're doing cool stuff I know about. And also on my own website, every month I post what the CO2 is. And all I do is, as I go and get it from Mauna Loa, which anybody can do. But what I do give some value to it, because in my software on my website, it calculates the change from the previous year. So I can tell you that right now, in May 2021, the average CO2 in the air was 419.13 parts per million. And in May 2020, it was only 417.31 parts per million, which is an increase of 0.44%, slightly less than 0.5%, usually slightly over 0.5%. So last month was a good month. Or, of course, we're actually measuring a whole year's worth of change. So we may actually be seeing what we gained from COVID, that small amount of improvement, which isn't an improvement at all, since everything's still going in the wrong direction, as Amos's slide showed us. But
yes.
That's it. About 0.5%, and with an economic downturn, it's slightly less than 0.5% per year.
Right. So what you're indicating is a slowdown in the increase. It's not an increase. It's exactly a slowdown in the increase. And your slide is very clear that everything's always going up. The increase is increasing. And, no, the slide you're talking about, the slide that was the decline of
Yes, that one.
This one is the speed of that's the acceleration. So the acceleration is slowing down. Going up is actually slowing down. So the it's decreasing at the rate of 2%, which is not enough.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's
otherwise the red line would be different, would look different than it is.
Right. But we are slowing down, but it's far from what we need in order to curb the
to turn around.
To turn around. What I wanted to make point, the dividends is a great idea. The problem here is that you have to get the dividends from somewhere. You have to get it from a surplus, and that's something that he'll discuss in the video, in the second video. Basically, I mean, you have to have the money from somewhere to reward countries for their participation and for their cracking down on carbon emissions. And to do that, you have to use the WTO in order to draw those resources, those surpluses. Of course, so you can't just do dividends. You have to do both. It's going to be difficult to have dividends that are as significant as you need in order for the balance of the profit to be skewed towards green energy compared to use of fossil fuels at this point. But so let's play the first video of him, and I apologize. He's very academic. I mean, he is an academician, so it is not very exciting to watch, but it's probably worth the watch. Not a lot of coverage on this, but I think it's very important to understand.
So I think the way to have an effective international agreement requires some kind of incentives. I call this a climate club or climate compact. And the climate compact involves two features, like any club. It involves some kind of requirement on the member of the compact or the member of the club. You have to pay some dues, so to speak. But then it also requires some penalties on non-participants or people who are not in the club. And so here's an example. You might have an international carbon price, minimum price of $50 a ton of CO2. And then you might have a penalty tariff on non-participants of 3%. And I don't know if we want to come back to a question, because Markus raised this earlier, and this question of penalty tariffs and how to structure those and the incentives is actually a very, very important part of this. But let me just finish up because I'm really coming to the end of my time. So we've done a fair amount of modeling at Yale on the compact. It's a complicated combination of climate modeling, impacts modeling, and trade modeling. And I'll give you an example of one of our results. And this shows, not as complicated as it looks, but basically you're going to take a minimum carbon price for each region, there are 15 regions, of $50 a ton of carbon. So that means to be a member in good standing of the Climate Compact, you have to have a domestic carbon price of at least $50 a ton. Okay. So then along the horizontal axis here, we show different tariffs from 0% to 10% for non-members. And on the vertical axis, we show the number of participants. So not surprising, and this fits history, fits the Kyoto Protocol, if there are no penalties, zero tariff on non-participants, there are no participants, because there's no reason to participate in a costly club if there are no penalties for non-participation. Then you can see as the tariff rises, how participation rises, 1% tariff, 2% tariff, 3% tariff, 4, 5, 6% tariff, 7, 8, 9, 10. I may have missed something here. So what you see as the tariff or penalty gets higher, you get a larger number of participants, and you actually get this kind of tipping between 1 and 3 or 4, where once you get more regions joining it, then the incentives are stronger. There's not much of an incentive. There's only one tiny little country in it, one tiny little region in it. There's no incentive for others to join because there's no penalty. But as more and more join, there's more and more incentive. So this tipping shows, and the tipping's around a 2% tariff. So this shows the basic point, I think, of the point is this is illustrates a basic flaw in the current approach for international climate agreements. There are no incentives to participate, and there are no penalties for non-participation. And therefore, we're in a regime which is basically voluntary. It's even worse than the Kyoto Protocol in the sense that these countries are making voluntary pledges for things they might do they plan to do by 2030, but there are no penalties if they don't, and they can always redefine them. But the main thing is there are no penalties if they don't. This is aside from the fact that they are not going to reach very ambitious goals anyway.
So Bill, can I ask?
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating to see, and I know this is hard to kind of process Saturday morning, but this is critical. How we configure the future taxation or dividends, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to build it as. This is going to have tremendous effects on whether or not we reach the targets. We're not going to reach the targets the way it is with the Paris Agreement. That's understood. That's proven. So something needs to be done. And though this guy is academic, I think it's important to build the movement behind him to have things done. Another little clip how he's explaining some other ideas regarding how this thing is implemented, and there's like distinction between taxing the nominally or taxing. Let me allow him to explain.
And this is a flaw, I don't know, flaw, it's a shortcoming of the shortcoming of the proposal of the Climate Compact, which is it cannot support very high carbon prices. So in the work we did, we found that it could support prices up to $50 a ton of CO2, but not much more than 100. And the reason was that countries didn't have enough surplus in the WTO, according to the calculations we made, to make it worthwhile to undertake the abatement that required for $100 or $200 a ton. And that comes to a final point, which comes back to a point you made, Markus, which is that is also the reason why we chose the uniform tariff rather than the countervailing duties. If you look at the numbers, the impact of the countervailing duties is too small to support high abatement. It's, I would say, not an order of magnitude, but much, much smaller than the corresponding uniform tariff. And if I could give you one reason why it's not going to work, much of global emissions come from electricity generation. Electricity generation is almost completely a non-traded good. So to the extent that you're doing countervailing duties on the carbon content of imports, and you're not going to go deep in the input-output table to do these. You're doing cars, you're doing steel, whatever, petrochemicals, but you're not doing electricity because electricity isn't important. Then the countervailing duties are not going to be powerful. And they're not going to hit the sector that's most important to get off carbon right away, which is electricity generation. So, quick, long answer to short question.
Yeah, so basically countervailing meaning like it would be implemented on the trade between the countries, and since you're leaving out a whole industry, which is the biggest problem, the electrical production, not the vehicle production, which Biden keeps pushing as the solution climate change, climate crisis. It's mostly electric generation, and if that's being left out, we kind of, that misses the point. So how you do this, how you tax it, is also very important, and it's not just doing the taxing. So I think we should all educate ourselves on these issues and push our politicians to act on them, because otherwise we'll not move the needle.
Well, interesting numbers William Nordhaus brought there. Though I got the strange feeling that this was a very academic discussion of economists. And and I saw a critique here in chat coming from us. Sorry, not sorry. We need to get a hell of a lot of more serious about we are destroying our environment. And the moment William Nordhaus presented his model, I was thinking about, how could this get together, with the situation we are in right now, where we are seeing that icebergs are melting like nothing in hot soda, right? And I'm asking myself if these numbers are overhauled the moment they are published. Because I don't. It is important that economists also make up their minds about this topic, But I don't think that there lies the alone answer,
Most economists are witch doctors.
Yeah, you say it, and I don't know, man. I don't know. I've always had the idea, that every single harm to environment caused by consume should be paid with taxes, at least, So what I want to say, if you want to have your bottle of champagne every day, you got to consider how much does it hurt the environment to produce this bottle of champagne.
Well, I'm already
including the delivery and stuff, And if an independent organization says it costs amount X, if you got to pay $15 more for a bottle of champagne,
yeah, well,
then you got to do it, and I think this would reduce the consume of champagne also. But of course, this goes against our capitalistic thinking, And it is, it's a giant mess, in my opinion.
Except
I look forward to next week so I can cover the carbon dividends, because that is the way to handle all this. And
I'm curious, man.
From what Mr. Nordhaus said there about the power generation, not being accounted for, dividends would take care of that. Dividends actually take care of everything.
Right, but where are you getting the dividends from? That's the question.
Well, they're actually collected very simply. From that sense, you do use your tax authority to collect the money. You're right. You're collecting money. You collect money. There's only one way to do it. You take the money, right? So you collect the money at the source of production, or the the source of origin. And from there, the basic idea is you take this money and you distribute it amongst every legal resident of the country. Okay? Totally democratic. So poor people get the money, rich people get the money. It's all equally divided. So imagine, just for a thought experiment, we tax carbon so high that we put $2 a gallon on it. And so instead of being $4 a gallon, suddenly $6 a gallon in America. Well, you just got a credit card that, you can use, and you drive so little that when you use it, also you're only paying $3. See, because the actual cost is $6. That has to be paid. But you are getting the tax. Nobody else can get the tax. That's what makes it the dividend. That's what makes it different from any other way of collecting the money and spending the money. because what you're doing is you're giving the buying, you're taking the, you're taking the money, but you're giving it back to the people so they can spend it. So that the net effect is the economy still works. You can still go to your job. Everything still works the same. What's the advantage? If you think about it, the advantage is pretty obvious. If you don't drive, you're going to save some money. You're going to be able to go down to that museum and see that exhibit. You're going to be able to do stuff by making the personal choice, your personal choice, to change your lifestyle so you're not using carbon. And you're being rewarded for making that choice.
Keith, but it would affect, of course, it would affect poor people much more than the rich and powerful.
Yes, it helps them. It gives them money. It has the outside effect of being public welfare, because if you're a billionaire, you're only paying, you're only saving money on what you're spending. You can only fill up your Porsche or whatever whatever it is you're driving, but you're paying, you pay much more.
But my point is, Keith, if you're a rich guy, you'll pay $3 more for the tax. That's no sweat off your back. It doesn't hurt you. If you're counting pennies to survive, you're gonna look at it. So the question is this really? But
you're getting the money. You haven't lost anything. That's the important thing to understand, is that for you, the poorer you are, since you're getting the same amount of money that everybody else is, you're getting more money than you actually spend when you buy gas. A poor person doesn't spend $500 on gasoline a week. They're watching every penny, like you're pointing out. So if you gave them,
yeah, but who has more of the power? Who has more of the impact on global
the consumer,
global fuel,
or whoever's using it? Whoever's using it.
Well, I would say that the industry has much more effect than the average Joe using his car on the weekend.
And
let's cover all this next week.
Definitely.
I'll work on my the tape's actually pretty good and pretty complete, so I won't change that. But
I'm looking forward, and I guess our audience should also look forward to this too. This promises to be a very vivid discussion. I only wanted to point out to a statement of William Nordhaus in the clip before, where he said that it was the Kyoto Agreement. He said it was all done without any punishment. That it was done on a goodwill basis. And we all know that we as a human species are not working like that. There needs to be restrictions, or if you call it punishments, like he did, otherwise you won't move the human race. You won't move us to do anything else than we did before. And this was a great illusion, and it was serving all politicians. Because everyone could say, okay, we made an agreement, we did this and that, and in the year X epsilon, we will get into action. It's the easiest way to avoid this stuff, and this was the only purpose of it.
Marcus, the only path to the future involves massive lifestyle change.
Oh, yes.
And everything that, say, an economist like Mr. Nordhaus comes up with, these people come up with, they're embedded they're embedded so deeply that they can only do a band-aid. They can only see a solution from their point of view, which is basically tweaking the system without changing it.
I don't think that's
not fundamental enough.
Well, I think it is still
guys, I agree to what Keith said, because the system is still based on capitalism.
Yes.
But I think we all can agree that capitalism is the worst opponent of any measures to avoid the climate catastrophe as far as it's possible. We did this several shows ago, several times, And this is why I question this model, because it is still based on capitalism and the capitalistic rules.
I agree.
And Keith is right, and I absolutely agree. we cannot continue the lifestyle we know, or our parents or maybe our grandparents knew. It will be much less and much more local oriented. Maybe it also will this goes too far. I don't want to go too far with the thought, but I think it is absolutely necessary, to move away from capitalism. And I don't think that any recipe which is still based on capitalism would help in the end.
Yeah, well, what I think capitalism is, it's exploitation. It's actually organized exploitation from a financial point of view.
Capitalism is still, in the end, is building on exploitation, because yes. I said this many times. The example I always have here, it is capitalism is like a blanket which is too short. If you push it up to your skin, your feet are cold. Capitalism is not dedicated to cover everyone, and that's the wrong in it.
Okay, all of these things are just generalizations, though. I'm where you're looking at this economic tool that's being proposed by Nordhaus. It's I think it does. The whole idea of it is that he is trying to solve the entire problem, not put a Band-Aid. If you were to put a Band-Aid, you'd be happy with whatever is happening now, but it's not
right.
Yeah, his push is, and he has a good track record with that, serving the public good.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, I'm looking forward to learn more about the dividends, and we will have hopefully a great discussion next week.
Yes, we will.
Interesting topic. Anyway, let's go over to the shortcuts, and we are coming to the funny stuff. We're coming to funny people. We're coming to a funny a Republican. His name is Gohmert, Louis Gohmert, and he is so out of mind. Just roll the clip, and then you see yourself.
Understand from what's been testified to, the Forest Service and the BLM, you want very much to work on the issue of climate change. I was informed by the immediate past director of NASA that they have found that the moon's orbit is changing slightly, and so is the Earth's orbit around the sun. We know there's been significant solar flare activity. And so is there anything that the National Forest Service or BLM can do to change the course of the moon's orbit or the Earth's orbit around the sun? Obviously, that would have profound effects on our climate.
We better call Ghostbusters.
I would have to follow up with you on that one, Mr. Gohmert.
Yeah. Well, if you figure out a way that you in the Forest Service can make that change, I'd like to know.
So I got to repeat this. He was addressing this suggestion to change the orbit of the moon to a forest society, forest foundation, and he even managed to include BLM in it. I think this is absolutely fantastic, right?
We know they're
when
all
Jupiter aligns with Mars.
Sorry?
And the moon is in the 7th house. Hey, this is a good thing.
And we know.
I mean, the thing behind is the NASA reports he's referring to. The NASA report says that due to the climate change on Earth, the orbit of the Earth and the orbit of the moon differs slightly, but caused by what we are doing to our planet. And now he wants to turn it around and says, okay, but if we change the orbit of the moon, maybe we can get everything in order here, and I don't know. Those guys are public servants. I mean, they have an official job, right?
Well, is he for real, or does he know he's an idiot?
That's the question.
Keith, he doesn't know that.
We can only assume that he was sarcastic, but I'm not sure about sarcasm in the GOP, because if you look at the ones like the MTG or Getz and every one of these creepy folks which is around, I'm pretty sure he's serious about it.
Oh yeah,
he looks serious. It's scary if he is.
I think he is.
And
yes.
and this was the craziest stuff I heard in a while. And you all guys know that in the past years we heard a lot of crazy stuff, but I think this can make it to the top 5, right? Because this is so outlandish and so stupid in every meaning. Again, he is asking this question to a forest society.
Yeah, and we all know that the Forest Society is in cahoots with the BLM, and
yes,
Yeah.
and Amos, don't forget your guys are also in it. Don't forget about the Jews who have this laser gun.
That's right. Yeah,
and who are called. It's so fucking crazy. Yeah, it's no joke. I guess it's no joke. He's serious about it. Yeah, and we got a comment. Yeah, perhaps I can explain my theory by altering the orbit of my brain around my head. Exactly. So fucking crazy. Yeah. And you also got one, Amos, about Israel. Bibi, what's going on with Bibi?
Oh, Bibi, well, here he says he always said Israel was behind him. Something extraordinary happened in Israel, and that is that coalition of the most unlikely partners came about just to toss Bibi out of power. I guess they saw the danger of Erdogan type of dictator coming up, and they decided enough was enough. So you have people from the very far right to the far left. There's an Arab Socialist Party sitting together with the party of the first prime minister. There's going to be a alternate arrangement where the first prime ministership will be going to Bennett, and the second one to Lapid. Lapid is more of a left party. Bennett is to the right of Netanyahu, is actually more aggressive militantly against territorial compromise and such things. And each of them, they'll be going in succession. So first part, the Bennett will go, and then Lapid, and each of them has a veto power over the other. So no major things were going to be decided on, because there's a lot of disagreement in the same coalition. There's not only left and right, there's also religious and secular, which are also at each other's throats, sitting in the same group. What's interesting with the Arab parties is that one of the parties, they actually split. What happened was, after the Abrams Accord happened, and Netanyahu signed some Arab countries to some sort of a normalization with Israel. The Arab party, the joint party that was the largest Arab party at that time, opposed those accords, and they kind of got in trouble with their own borders, with their own voters. The Arab population in Israel was actually in favor of the Abrams Accord. It allowed them to have normalization with another Arab country. They saw this as progress, and so they punished this party, and the guy who started, there was a split in that party. One of the guys, Abbas, left and started his own party, and he got the votes from the electorate instead of the joint list that kind of lost him on behalf of that, because of that disagreement. So you have really interesting dynamics going on behind the scene. And now whether this guy is going to reap the benefits, whether this new party Ram, it's called Ram, is going to reap the benefits of making that gamble or not is left to be seen based on whether this coalition will be somewhat successful or not.
And I think it is remarkable to see how desperate the political landscape in Israel must be, to get a coalition just to get rid of Netanyahu, right?
Absolutely.
They definitely want to have him out, and I was asking the question before in the green room, but what happens if the coalition breaks up again? Is there Netanyahu waiting in the background, jumping in front and say, hey, I'm back and vote for me? And you have a different opinion on this?
It's unlikely. What has protected Netanyahu somewhat from the criminal investigations and indictments was his position as prime minister. Once he loses that, he's going to be treated as any citizen, and probably that's not to his benefit. So I don't see that happening. I think I'm happy that he lost. He's had a tremendous effect on Israeli politics in terms of creating that concept that just dragging things on and creating like a status quo and tinkering with the Palestinian situation would be a strategy. We see that it's not. It's boomeranged. He's tried to weaken the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and balance it with Hamas, giving them access to money and so forth, in the idea that would kind of create a rift instead of like consolidating their power. And that was a gamble that obviously was a failing strategy from every perspective.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
Is the letter Q in the Hebrew alphabet?
No, there's no Q.
Good.
Why is that?
I'm just wondering if there's an Israeli Q that is going to
a QAnon, right?
The resurrection of Netanyahu.
Yeah, no,
it could be. Yeah.
Well, what's amazing, what I have to say is it's amazing that the speeches that Netanyahu has given and all his arguments, he's now claiming that the vote was stolen from him. He's going exactly by Trump's book, to the point where the Israeli TV, the main channel, has like put alongside in parallel Trump's speech and Netanyahu's speech, and they're almost identical. So he's completely copying that playbook.
Of course.
Another thing that's interesting to see in regards to so basically the whole perspective of whether to strengthen Hamas in order to counterbalance the Palestinian Authority and to create a rift so that there wouldn't be any progress on the political agreement aspect towards peace, was that it is now considered to have been a mistake. A lot of public pressure and political pressure on reversing that and weakening Hamas in term. And for that purpose, they're trying to feed the reconstruction of Gaza through the Palestinian Authority rather than giving it to Hamas. But the problem is, if you don't also strengthen the Palestinian Authority in political terms, in other words, giving them political victories and political significance towards the resolution of the Palestinian issues, then you haven't done much. It's basically, we've been in that's been done already previously, where in a previous round the money was funneled through PA that hasn't done anything the opposite. So it really requires a significant change in Israeli political attitude. I don't know if the government is prepared to do this, especially under Bennett. But that is essentially what's going to be needed in the long run to have the PA become more of a partner towards the real solution of the issue. One other thing that was interesting that I in my research I found that they referred to the Abrams Accords as actually having propelled, actually helped counter Netanyahu's approach, and that is that once they were signed, about 100,000 Israelis went to the Emirates for vacation over the past year, and when they went there, it changed a lot of minds as to fear from Arab-speaking people, which has a political effect overall as to seeing Palestinians as a partner to further negotiations and so forth. So it had an unintended effect on things, as well as another thing that Netanyahu did that kind of boomeranged, which was to flirt with the Arab parties in order to build his coalition. In that, he actually opened up the possibility of an Arab party being part of the coalition, part of the government, which has not happened yet. And now this is going to be the first government where there is an Arab presence in the actual government, in the cabinet. So it's just watching this is for someone who is politically interested is like watching a crime novel or something. It's
I can imagine, yeah. And the outcome is still not fixed, and we'll see. I'm skeptic how long this coalition would last and what comes after this. But we'll see, and
we've seen that kind of
crime
thing.
novel where you want to get to the next chapter.
But
yes.
But you remember the Cold War?
Yeah.
Well, that was another balance of power that was completely unstable in a way, because it was based on mutual annihilation, and it survived. We survived through it somehow. So it's not impossible.
But with luck, if you remember right, with luck, we were at least 2 times close to getting annihilated. So it is not a safe harbor, you know.
I'm not saying it's safe, but in the political situation that is now, if Netanyahu was not in position, there would have been a right wing coalition for sure. The fact that he's leaving the scene, maybe signaling a dangerous situation in the future. I'm very worried about that, actually. But at the present time, we have a system where both sides are kind of pulling in opposite direction and balancing each other, which I haven't seen in other countries so far. It's kind of an unusual situation, but we'll see how that works out.
All right. Let's go over to the Satire roundup. Yeah, we see that Biden is confronted with serious problems, you know, and clearly the state actor is becoming our greatest challenge. China, no West Virginia. And he's the man who is leading the Democratic Party, as it seems. It's about Joe Manchin, and it's crazy. The critical race theory, you know, and the uncritical race theory.
Goes back to what we discussed last week.
Oh, yes, I was reading about this not too long ago. Crazy.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Stay out of that one altogether.
Yeah.
No, it seems to be something between the woke and the extreme conservatives. And normal people should probably ignore it altogether. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
What you don't know doesn't hurt you, right?
Yeah, in this
case, exactly. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. What I can see is not existing. And the shortest lifespans. We have the mayfly, we have the lunar moth, we have the fruit fly, and we have the Trump block. Yes. After this latest mass shooting, I feel really torn. Should I tweet thoughts and prayers or shock and grief? Yeah, that's the question those guys are confronted on a regular basis. Yeah, and we see the old dinosaurs. This is what we are talking about 2 weeks ago. You know, the comments are coming for ExxonMobil, Total, and Shell. And yeah, maybe too late. They took the shirt right off your back. The FBI steals back ransom money.
That's a reference to the situation where the FBI actually managed to pull the money back. It was in Coinbit accounts. They somehow managed to pull the money back after the ransom has been paid and the software released. They claim that the U.S. doesn't believe it's been Russia, but it's people in Russia, Russian-speaking criminals. But who knows? I suspect that that's not entirely the story. But
when will this bullshit ever end?
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Yes.
I don't have a slide or anything, but one thing I ran across this week was that as much as 50% of all the unemployment paid out in America has been stolen fraudulently through these various things. So, you know, it's not just the, pipelines being held for ransom, that a huge amount of money has been lost. Like I know Washington State lost millions of dollars through
and
fraudulent claims.
there's actually entities like Dark Side, which is like a website that where they completely manage the entire process of professionally manage the entire process of hijacking a company or it's just unbelievable. But that's
unbelievable.
That's an entire line of business. We're into the wrong business, Keith.
That's for sure.
Yeah. When we return to the office, will you keep them wearing? Will you keep wearing them? Masks? I thought you meant sweats. Yeah. The home office problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a problem.
And this is also the big problem we talked about. It is the herd immunity, which scientists are in doubt that we could reach it because there are so many people who resist to get vaccinated, and it gives a good chance for the Indian variation of the virus or the Brazilian of the variation of the virus. Well, it's not so easy.
Yeah, wait long enough, we can have a new variant because of these people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the point of it. Yeah. Amos?
And here are the selfless Americans. I'm volunteering at the local soup kitchen. I'm volunteering at the county food pantry. And the rich guy says, I'm volunteering to pay a little income tax this year.
Yeah. And the last one is without his glasses and with his glasses. And I'm not sure. He looks not to have glasses. He looks like he's on a trip, you know?
Yeah.
He's tripping.
Yeah, that's how McConnell does look like. So.
And there was an interesting video I saw the other day about Joe Manchin. There was a lady, an elderly lady from West Virginia, who was so pissed off about Joe Manchin, and she organized already a good portion of people, and they're organizing a march against Joe Manchin in West Virginia, and well, it's a good action, you know, because what he's doing is absolutely crazy.
With Democrats
you know?
like that, we don't need enemies, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's definitely in the wrong party, you know. Well, guys, 2 hours, you know, one of our longest shows yet. And Thank you very much.
Wanted to make this one a short one, but
yes, we always try this to make it short, but we never succeed. Well, it shows that we are enjoying the discussion. I hope you guys, when you watch it, enjoy this too. And thank you very much for your comments in chat. And when we have the chance, we read it. And well, we're going out today with a band from Austin, Texas. They formed in 2017. It's a duo, and they were nominated in 2020 for the Emmy Awards as Best Newcomer, and they are doing a good style of soul, funk, and stuff, And those people, they know how to make music. They are workers, They know how to work their instruments and their stuff. And guys, I hope you like it. And it was a pleasure to be with you. Amos, Keith, thank you very much. And well, see you next week, right?
Can't wait.
All right. With a great discussion about the topic,
Let me just, in closing, mention those of you who are watching on Facebook. Our main channel at this point is on YouTube. You can go to Uphill Media channel on YouTube and see us there, participate in the chat. Please don't forget to share. Sometimes we get hit, like last time we got our content blocked because the coverage of one of the clips, which we thought was important, but apparently.
Which one?
The Move massacre was flagged, so we got hit on that.
Yeah.
But
I'm posting them on my website. I don't trust YouTube at all. I can understand that YouTube sucks. Saying this, have a great weekend. Or do you want to add something, Amos?
Yeah, I'm gonna be cutting some of those topics. Probably we had some topics in the past. I'm gonna clip them and put them on the site. So if you see updates, that's those clips, not a live new discussion.
Yeah. Again, thank you very much. If you like, leave a thumbs up. And hope you enjoy the Black Pumas with Fire. See you next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.